Everyone has their favourite white boy, just a little guy that makes them giggle and kick their feet like an idiot, and one of those dumb little white boys is none other than Ky Kiske. If I had to rank him on my scale of favourite little guys, he'd probably be somewhere close to the top. Not at the very top though, because he's French. So let's take a peek at his story to help us see why people still like him despite that. Ky was an orphan, which is already a bad start. His parents were killed by gears when he was just a stupid little 5-year-old. This probably messed him up emotionally, so of course, instead of going to therapy, he just decided to take a shot at fighting gears himself. But since he was just a stupid little 5-year-old, the commander that he talked to told him to piss off, and if he managed to survive for 5 years, he can come back and ask to join again. So somehow, little 5-year-old Ky managed to survive for 5 more years, and at age 10, he got to join the Sacred Order of Holy Knights. They taught him how to fight, and at the age of 15, he was both known as a prodigy swordsman and was the leader of his own battalion. And in that battalion was none other than the guy, Soul Bad Guy. Soul, as we all know, is moody as fuck and really carefree about everything, so obviously Ky hated that, being the grandstanding warrior bent on serving justice and all that. But he couldn't really do anything to discipline Soul, since Soul was getting the job done well enough anyway, and this ended up making the relationship pretty tense. And then Ky decided to challenge Soul to a friendly duel, thinking he was just a human, but Soul, as we all know, is not a human, and normally this would mean that Soul would go a bit easy on Ky so as not to draw suspicion, but since Ky was already known as a deadly gear killer on the battlefield, Soul assumed he knew he was a gear and was going to try and kill him. So Soul didn't hold back at all and completely destroyed the poor kid. Soul was so shocked at how hard he beat Ky's ass that he knew Ky had held back, which made him even more disrespectful to Ky. And after this, they started bickering like a troubled husband and wife even more often. A year after their little fight, Soul steals the fire seal from the Holy Order, but is caught by Ky, and Ky, being the geeky little prefect that he is, fights Soul to protect the fire seal. But Soul fucks him up again and leaves with his fire aspect sword. So now Ky was just salty that he'd lost 2 scraps in a row and started holding a grudge against Soul, which I don't blame him for because Soul is a bit of a prick. Ky was made the leader of the order soon after anyway, which is crazy because he's like 16 at this point and has just been handed control over the entire military force. He's also given the thunder equivalent to the fire seal as a symbol of his status. The guy who gave Ky control of the order, Cliff Underson, fought Justice and had to be saved by Ky, who managed to get Justice to dip, but obviously Ky didn't want to let her get away, so he chased her down just to see her on the verge of death, surrounded by hellfire. Which was Soul. Yeah, Soul did that. Ky didn't know Soul did that, and being a religious guy, he must have thought she'd just been smited by Christ. Anyway, Ky rang up his boys and got them to lock Justice up in a dimensional prison, which luckily ended the war, and dissolved the order because fuck the military. But somehow, Ky did something even worse than military service. He joined the police force. In 2180, after Ky had been spending his time being a fucking loser for a couple of years, the second Holy Order selection tournament was announced, giving competitors permission to draw blood in the duels they partake in, and offering a huge prize pool. Ky overheard mutterings of Justice's resurrection, and decides to dust off his old Holy Order uniform and stood up to enter the tournament. During the tourney, Testament frees Justice, who is then bodied by Soul and Ky again, but before she dies, she drops some pretty good lines that begin some really interesting character development for Ky. Ky begins with his normal shtick, saying that evil has no place in this world and blah blah blah, but Justice refutes what he's saying, explaining that she was born to be both a slave and a weapon for humans to do as they please, and she has lived to fulfill that goal. Ky desperately tries to deny this, saying that what God ordains and wishes for, that is justice. But right before Justice dies, she asks if Ky would have such an unwavering faith if he were to meet her creator, that man, and before Ky can get her to elaborate, she dies, leaving Ky shaken and questioning whether he has been doing the right thing. Ky, still grappling with his concept of justice, learns of a gear that doesn't seek to harm humans, and so he goes looking for her. Him and Dizzy have a little yap sesh before throwing hands, and Ky lets himself be defeated so he doesn't have to take her in. Ky gets back to whatever it is cops do.
2 weeks later,
when Ky finds Soul, who has defeated Eno, and asks Soul about that man, then requests Soul to let him bring in Eno, to which Soul tells Ky to go fuck himself, calls him a spoiled brat, says Ky doesn't understand anything about the situation, and then he just leaves. Ky starts trying to challenge his morals by investigating the government, but Soul tries proving he doesn't have what it takes by kicking his ass again. After that whipping, Ky goes to hang out with Dizzy in her little grove, but Dizzy loses control of Necro and Undyne after learning that Crow has created a replica of Justice. After that whole ordeal, Dizzy asks Ky to help her learn more about her origins, because she's just been chilling in that forest since she was a kid, and he agrees but chooses to fight Soul once more as they fail magically beat him this time, and gets defeated. So instead of continuing to chase Soul, he goes back to Dizzy, who moves in with Ky to help her learn how humans live, and after spending so much time together, they fell in love. After being together for about a year, they had their little angel Sin Kiske, but Ky is a God-loving, Bible-preaching, patriotic Frenchman. And despite loving Dizzy and Sin, he felt like he was sinning. because he was in love with a gear, and both Dizzy and Sin had to hide from the public due to fear of public outrage. And on top of that, Kai avoided making eye contact with Sin, which made Sin grow to hate him and refused to call him dad as he grew up. Kai was blackmailed into becoming a puppet king by the conclave because they were threatening him with their knowledge of Dizzy and Sin's existences. Kai told them to eat his shorts, but he still had the issue of them knowing about his family, and it was driving him mental, so Dizzy gave Soul a ring and asked him to help Kai. And when Soul showed up, he just started pissing off Kai, which made Kai start brawling him, and Kai was losing, so little Sin Kiske waddled in and told him to stop fighting because it was going to upset Dizzy, which made Kai cry. So Kai and Dizzy gave Sin to Soul to raise him safely at the tail end of 2182, while Kai accepted his role as first king in 2183. 3 years after Kai is elected king, gears start getting vaporized, which includes Dizzy, because she's half a gear. So in a panic, Kai uses the Thunder Seal to freeze Dizzy, but because he rushed the spell, he couldn't remove it, and then he and his guards are attacked by some goons, with his guards ending up dead and Kai being sealed by that man. Eventually, Soul, Sin, and a few other nerds roll up and free Kai. Soul starts asking if Dizzy's okay, but Kai just starts gurning over his dead guards. So Sin tries to make him feel better by calling him a dogshit king who can't protect anything before leaving. One of the nerds tells Kai that they need to kill Dizzy because she's the key to getting into that man's cube, which they don't want anyone getting into because that could cause the world to end. And Kai said he wouldn't let them kill her because they're in love, and he announced that Sin is their son. A bunch of gears then rush the castle, and Soul pisses off to rescue Sin, while Kai and Dr. Paradigm stay to protect Dizzy. Kai helps Dr. Paradigm remove the brainwashing from the gears before leading his army into battle to give Soul time to enter the backyard. Sin really wants to go, so Soul just fucking punches him until he agrees to stay back with Kai, who apologizes to Sin for being such a shit father, and Sin says okay and tells him to stop talking like a geek if he wants to act like a dad, and Kai lets him run off to help Soul. After Soul defeats Valentine and returns from the backyard, Kai brings the doctor back to the castle to figure out how to unseal Dizzy before going to an emergency meeting with a bunch of important people and telling them that he wants humans and gears to coexist in Illyria. A year later, Elfelt tells Kai that her sister's gonna do something bad, so he locks her up in this fucked up looking machine and takes her with him on his big airship. Kai then gives Soul and Sin a ring and tells them to go find Ramlethal, and Soul does what he does best and they capture her. Everything that Elfelt told them was going to happen started happening, so they released her from her evil little machine, and she goes and plays toys with Sin and Ramlethal while they head to Zep. On the way, Kai has a cute little chat with Soul and tells him that once he's done with whatever it is he does, Dizzy, Sin and he will welcome him. Then Kai and Soul reach Zep and learn from Zato 1 that the Conclave want to reboot Justice, and that the Conclave plan to use St. Elmo's fire and Illyria Castle to revive Justice. During their evacuation of the capital, Kai and Sin learn that Dizzy was unsealed by Dr. Paradigm, and Sin finally calls Kai Dad.
Let Dad take care of you this time.
While defending his area, Kai just gets shot.
Huh?
But since Kai's the GOAT, he just stands back up, locks in, flexes his epic crimson red eye and kills the loser who shot him. In the aftermath of all this, Elfelt and Justice are kidnapped for Ariels to continue the plan though. Soul and Kai have another cute little chat, with Kai saying that he's interested about Soul's past, but that he cares more about what Soul's future looks like. Then they drink. Then they all get caught up with the story of that man and learn Ariels is the big bad universal will, so Kai and Leo go to confront her. But when they confront her, she reveals her identity to the world, blows up the building, and runs away. Kai leaves Dizzy to protect the capital, and he and the gang head the Ariels, but on the ride over, Kai and Soul come to the conclusion that they are actually related, and then choose never to speak of it again. When they get there, Soul does what he does best and solves everything through brute force. And after this, Soul asks Kai to fight him one last time, because he still wants to see what Kai can do when he isn't holding back. Kai doesn't really want to until Soul calls Dizzy a monster, and Kai locks in and destroys Soul, along with the surrounding area. Kai also clocks that Soul was actually fighting him to prepare for his duel with that man, and Kai decides to help him prepare for it. 3 weeks later, while Kai is out pissing about, Ariels is freed from her cage by Eno, who rips a little man out of her chest and runs away with him. Kai sniffs about, learns that Eno stole something from Ariels, and gives his best boy Soul a ring.
No, this is Patrick.
Soul denies his request to catch Eno, but after, she lets herself get caught, so he comes to meet Kai where she's being held anyway.
Hold it! You can't just barge into the middle of... Hey, Eno!
Soul leaves to head to a government meeting, but Kai stays to watch Jacko interrogate Eno. After they wrap it up, Kai and Jacko go to meet with Soul at the government meeting, with Kai speaking to her about how everyone has their necessary frivolities, using Soul's alcohol problem as an example. They then get to the White House after Soul and his lot have ejected a Smurf from the building. Soul finally gets rid of his divine seed, and it's all fine and good until Happy Chaos appears again. having trolled them into ejecting some random dude, and he steals Asuka's Bible, making Ino a goddess. Soul tries to fight her, but gets flung into a tree and turns into Golden Freddy. Then Kai activates his own dragon install and fights her himself, but he's also defeated. Then Soul and Jacko have a cute little moment before Soul starts charging his notorious nuclear super weapon and aims it straight at Ino. Kai helps distract Ino while it charges, and then Soul evaporates her. And when it's all said and done, Kai goes home to his family, now consisting of Dizzy, Sin, Elfelt and Ramlethal, and renounces his throne, giving it to Dizzy, and making her the first non-human ruler, paving the way for Gears to gain the right of citizenship. You know what? Wow, what a video. This should not have taken me this long to make, but oh well, what can you do? Now that I've talked about Soul and the White Man, I'm gonna go ponder my orb and decide what to do the next video on. So if you want to manipulate me into spouting shite about a certain topic, drop a comment and my creature will take your comment and send it directly to my Neuralink. Also subscribe if you liked the video and want me to feed my creature next week. Next video will be out whenever it's out, and I'll see you next time.